Welcome, everyone out there in Sportsland. This is your host, Corey Phillips, for the Offtop podcast. I hope everybody had a good week. Hope everybody's safe out there. It's been one hell of a week. Got a lot to get into. This is episode 2. Date is September 14th, Tuesday evening. Hope everybody's doing great out there. Lots to get into. What a week of sports, let me tell you. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. Got some Major League Baseball in progress right now. I got a lot on my mind today, this week. After last week's episode, very first episode of Offtop podcast, episode number 2 is gonna be pretty filling. I'm telling you, you're gonna get your fill of a lot of NFL, college football, NBA. Not so much NBA. We'll touch on a couple things, but at the moment right now, though, I want to get into some Major League Baseball. Wild card is heating up. We're down to, I think each team has about 16 or 18 games left. And we'll get into some scores here in just a moment. But I want to first talk about one thing that was announced today from Major League Baseball. This is the second episode, so you guys probably don't even know a lot of my background, but I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I first moved to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Washington. I've lived California, Oregon, but I've made Seattle my home. That's my kids were born here, grew up here. But moving out here, from St. Louis, I'm a Cardinals fan. Still am. I'm a diehard Cardinals fan. But being out here for so long that I have, the Seattle Mariners are a team. When you move from a different place, where you just know one place your whole life, and then you travel and you see the country, and then you move somewhere that you just kind of get comfortable with, and you just post up. You're there. You start to raise a family, life changes happen, get a new job, career launches off, and you decide to stay in one place. That's what Seattle has meant to me. I've been out here for quite a bit, and I'm a real diehard baseball fan, so the Mariners kind of grew on me a little bit. And Major League Baseball today announced that the Seattle Mariners are going to be hosting the 2023 All-Star Game. Now, the Mariners haven't had an All-Star Game here since 2001. It was the second year back then when it was Safeco Field. Now it's T-Mobile Park. The Mariners hosted the All-Star Game, and I was fortunate enough to be there 20 years ago. And it was special because it was Cal Ripken's last All-Star Game there. And at that time, I don't think I was even 21 yet. And Cal Ripken, he's an all-star. He's a Hall of Famer. He was an all-star then. And it was a big deal because Seattle hadn't had anything close to that for a long time. Now, since the old Kingdom days. Now, Safeco had just opened up the year prior. So Safeco was immaculate. And T-Mobile Park now, it's the same park. They've just made some upgrades to it. But when that stadium first opened, it was state of the art. And it's still, T-Mobile Park is I would say, probably one of the top 5 stadiums in baseball. There's a few that are just awesome. The new Busch Stadium from St. Louis, where I'm from. That place is awesome. Yankee Stadium, that's rich in history. I've been there a couple times. Fenway Park, some of those older ballparks that are on people's bucket list. Wrigley Field, Dodger Stadium. There's a lot of stadiums like that, but Safeco Field was new and modern and upgraded at that time. And that home run derby was amazing to be at. So I can only imagine how this is going to be in a couple years when they have the All Star game here and now. The Mariners are in the midst of a wild card chase right now too. So that's what I wanted to get into right now. But that was exciting news for me. It's going to be a lot of buildup in that time between now and 2023 All Star break. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to go. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be the first person in line getting tickets for that. I want the whole weekend. I'll take the whole weekend off. I want to see the celebrity game on Friday. The home run derby will probably be that Saturday. Sunday will be Sunday or Monday, which is weird. I don't know what day they're going to have the All Star game this year. I think this past year they had it on a Monday. Can't remember. But anyway, in any event, it's going to be a fun-filled weekend. And I can't wait, even though it's not until 2023. But the fact that they're announcing it now gets me really excited. I think everybody's going to be excited. So that's the big news for Major League Baseball. But also, the wild card chase is heating up in both the American League and National League. Speaking of the Mariners right now are playing the Red Sox. They're in the second of a 3-game set with the Red Sox. There's a lot of games went final already, but the Mariners are still right now playing the Red Sox. Also, the Cardinals just went final, playing the Mets. They won in 11 innings, 7-6. So the Cardinals still technically right now have a half-game lead in that wild card chase. Let me tell you something about the Cardinals this year. They made some moves in the offseason to bolster the roster, and they kind of just have stayed afloat basically the whole season. At one point, like a month ago, they were like 8.5, 9 games out, and now they have. I mean, in the Cardinals, since I've been a kid, they've done this year in and year out. Just you think when they're dead to rights, they're not going to make a run. They make a move before the trade deadline, bolster their bullpen or their bats in their lineup, and they make a run and look. And sure enough, right now they're in the midst of the playoff run. Right now, though, the only game where there's only 2 games left that are going on right now, the Mariners and the Red Sox are at the top of the 6th, tied at 2 apiece at T-Mobile Park right now. And you also have a couple other games. The Giants, who just won who just clinched the playoff spot last night, they are playing the Padres right now. They're at the top of the 8th, and that game is 4-1. And we'll keep in touch with all these games as they're going on throughout the show. The other game right now that's going on, one of the last 3 games right now, the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers are up 6-1 over the Diamondbacks in the top of the 7th. So we'll keep close eye on those 2. Playoff implications in all 3 games where the Padres were one of the teams that the Cardinals were tied in with in the wild card chase. The Mariners, with a win, will move a game and a half out of the wild card spot. The Blue Jays and the Yankees have the top 2 wild card spots right now. Red Sox and the Mariners are playing each other right now. Red Sox are a half game out. Mariners are 2.5 games out, but with a win tonight, that puts them at 2 games out. The Oakland A's lost today, so they're at 3.5 games out of the wild card. Everybody else, they're dead to rights. They're not going to make it. So that's the American League wild card. The National League, though, is very interesting. The Dodgers and the Cardinals have the 2 wild card spots. With San Diego right now playing, they're losing their game right now. And Cincinnati losing their game, they're a half game out of that last wild card spot. Philadelphia and New York are both 4 games out. Everybody else, again, is dead to rights. So very interesting wild card scenarios going on right now. The Blue Jays, to me, have the easiest path because they have the easiest schedule down the stretch these last 16 or 18 games. I'm not sure. I think it's between at least 16 for each of these teams. But I think the Blue Jays have the best shot. They're the hottest team right now out of these playoff teams. The Yankees they've crawled and scratched and clawed. They went on a 16-game winning streak. They won 16 games in a row. Since then, they've lost 10 of their last 13. They squeaked one out last night. They won, came back down 5-0, came back and won 6-5 in 10 innings, which is good. but they're not playing well, and the Red Sox are also not playing well. So this is a good time for the Mariners to take advantage because the Mariners are playing amazing baseball right now. Even though the run differential, they have no business being in this position right now, based on the numbers. But they've been able to squeak some wins out, and now they're in the midst of the playoff hunt with about 16 or 18 games left to go. So some baseball news we'll be keeping a close eye on that throughout the rest of the show. But I wanted to get into some, what an amazing first week of football. And if you're a football fan like I am, you watched some football between Thursday and yesterday. I mean, to cap off the game last night between the Ravens and the Raiders, first game in Alliance Stadium, packed house. You even had Bruce Buffer doing the entrance. How cool was that? It's time. I jumped out of my seat when I saw that. It was amazing. Raiders pulling out the victory last night. A couple of pointers from that game. First of all, hell of a performance by Derek Carr and the Raiders. You got to give them credit. Derek Carr, 34 for 56, 435 yards, 2 TDs. You had him on fantasy. I'm sure you came close to winning, or you won this week. Me, I lost all 3 of my leagues, but we'll get to fantasy a little bit later on. But that third quarter, let me tell you something right now. Darren Waller, who is the tight end and probably the best offensive weapon on the Raiders, had a hell of a game. And I'm telling you right now, people talk Travis Kelce as a top tight end. Darren Waller is 1.5, or he should be a number 1. I don't know who to choose. They're both good. Darren Waller, he's like 6'4", 6'5", 265 pounds. He is a beast. And he was targeted on most plays that whole game. I think he had 17, 18 targets at least. I mean, he had 10 catches. He had 11 targets in the first half. But the Raiders pulled it out. Had a critical mistake towards the end. Had a little premature celebration on a deep pass from Derek Carr, and the guy got in the end zone. Well, so we thought he got in the end zone. Camera footage showed him down at the half-yard line. And then you kind of saw the immaturity of the Raiders in those 2 possessions. Half-yard line, they got stuffed, second down. Third down, they got called for false start, put him back 5 yards. Derek Carr throws a ridiculous pass off the defender's helmet, and it landed in the other defender's hands for the interception. Now, 2 critical turnovers by Lamar Jackson. By the way, Lamar Jackson led the game in rushing with 12 carries for 86 yards. And the knock on Lamar Jackson has been, is he an accurate quarterback? Because the numbers are not too impressive. 19 for 30, 235 yards, 1 touchdown. He was sacked 3 times. He lost 2 fumbles. So this year is kind of that year where we're looking to see more from Lamar Jackson from an evolving quarterback standpoint. And what I mean by that is he going to take his game to the next level? He's an elite talent. We haven't seen a quarterback like him. I mean, you can say Russell Wilson. You can say, to a certain extent, Cam Newton. Michael Vick is one of the first to be like that, a dual threat on the ground. But Lamar Jackson is a talent. But we needed to see him elevate his game as far as passing efficiency. Now, I know the Ravens are on lack of wide receivers at the moment. They lost 3 of their starting running. They lost 3 running backs in a span of 2 weeks. J.K. Dobbins was the first. They lost Good Edwards, and then their third string running back. They had to sign Latavius Murray, who came in. He scored a touchdown yesterday, 10 carries for 28 yards. And they're really lacking in the wide receiver core. They signed Sammy Watkins in the offseason. Sammy Watkins is a good pickup in fantasy, just in case, but in case you're looking for another wide receiver to pick up for fantasy. But he had a good game. Marquise Brown, decent game. But you need more from him as far as passing downfield, setting guys up, because you can't, it's hard to do a play action with no running game, but this was kind of the year we needed to see Lamar Jackson take that next step. Now, but overall, this week of football, starting with Thursday, what an impressive game from the Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers squeaked out a win. The one thing I would say about that is you can't give Tom Brady a minute 25. You can't do it. Am I right? Too much time, but very impressive game from Dak. I want to see them give the ball a little bit more to Zeke, because 11 carries ain't cutting it. He deserves more than that, and you can't rest it all on the shoulders of Dak Prescott. You need to get a running game in there. It's the same thing with the Ravens. That being said, Amari Cooper, 13 catches, 139 yards, 2 TDs. Very impressive there. But a couple of takeaways from week one. Two teams that are in, I think, I wouldn't say they're in trouble, because everybody panics, everybody freaks out after week one. I lost all 3 of my fantasy teams. I'm not freaked out after week one, but after week one and the performances of some of these guys, there's a couple of teams that I'm worried about that I think we should address. And they're going to come from both the AFC and the NFC. Number one, and I think the one everybody's going to be talking about here, would be the Green Bay Packers. Now, people were talking about Aaron Rodgers and the situation during the offseason. He didn't want to come back. He agrees to come back. He felt like he was being mistreated. I have my personal opinion about it. I thought he had an argument that I thought was valid, but the way he went about things, I thought was not healthy for the team. That being said, there's reports coming out from training camp that the team was in sync. Everybody looked good. My one thing about the Packers was, from the beginning of the season, was the offensive line. You lose 2 key components on the offensive line, and you had one that went on the PUP list, Jason Bakhtiari. And then you have your starting center, who was an all-pro center, left. And you had one of your right tackles leave. So you're missing 3 starting offensive linemen. And I was saying from the get-go, that's going to be an issue if they don't get that fixed soon. What happened in the game against the Saints? Aaron Rodgers was under duress. He was pressured all game long. Couldn't get the running game established. Aaron Jones was non-existent during the game. And no matter what happens everything's going to lie on the quarterback at this point. If the team sucks, if they're losing, it falls on Aaron Rodgers. The team's winning, Aaron Rodgers gets all the praise. Now, that's the position of the quarterback. That's always been that way. It's on every single team. Russell Wilson's a prime example of that. This game here, though, causes some concerns, because your offensive line, you have to establish the offensive line. It's the key to everything. It's the key to Aaron Rodgers' success. Devontae Adams, it affects everybody on that squad. Now, they're going into a week 2 matchup on Monday night against the Detroit Lions, who, by the way, the Detroit Lions almost squeaked one out against the San Francisco 49ers. That's on a different subject, but there's some concern there about the offensive line and Aaron Rodgers. I feel that Aaron Rodgers is going to have a game like that because let me go through the stats real quick because that in all my years of watching football, all my years of watching Aaron Rodgers, I have never see him play so poorly ever. That is as bad as it's going to get. He looked disinterested. He had that deer in the headlight looks every so often in the game. 15 for 28 for 133 yards, 2 interceptions. Quarterback rating of 13.4. That you can't get much worse than that. And big shout out to Jameis Winston. 14 for 20, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. He threw 5 touchdowns with the least amount of completions and the least amount of yards ever. That has never happened in the NFL. But getting back to Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it was so bad that they had to bench him after the third quarter because there was nothing they could do. The game was out of reach. But the offensive line, I don't think this thing during the offseason with him fighting with the front office was the problem. The offensive line has been an issue during training camp, and it wasn't addressed. Now, they're going to have to make some changes or sign some. Something's got to change. You start off 0-1, okay, fine. You can bounce back from that. 0-2, you're muddling the line there. If you start off 0-3, you're in panic mode. You start off 0-3, I mean, 0-3 or 0, I mean, one of their offensive linemen is going to be back, not going to be back till week 5 or 6. You can't go the first third of the season and you only have 1 or 2 wins on your belt. It's not going to cut it. So, big changes for the Packers. We'll see how they do. They're back at Lambeau on Monday against the Lions. The Lions are really scary. DeAndre Swift had a good game last week. Jared Goff put up some gaudy numbers. A lot of that was in garbage time, but they were a couple of mistakes away from squeaking that win out against San Francisco. So it'll be interesting to see about that. The other team out of the AFC that I wanted to, a team that's under, I would say, Corey's hot seat, would be the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are interesting because they didn't make any real changes over the offseason. It's kind of been the same team since 2018. You got Ryan Tannehill, and we knew Tannehill under the right system, he could be a good quarterback. Under the right system, you got a running game behind him. Derrick Henry's been one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the league for the last few years. You got A.J. Brown. Corey Davis was on the team. You got rid of him. He's in New York now with the Jets, Jets. You bring in Julio Jones. That's probably the only change you made. But again, you have to establish the running game. And they went away from it due to the fact that the Arizona Cardinals, which is a team that I said from the beginning is going to be scary this year, they got off to an early lead, which then you're playing catch-up for the rest of the game. You're putting too much of the onus on Tannehill's shoulders. Julio Jones didn't have a great game. And it should be the only time we have a conversation that Julio Jones and A.J. Brown have equal amount of yards because we already know who the number 1 receiver on that team is. And that's A.J. Brown. But Julio Jones had a decent... It was a subpar game for Julio Jones, I would say. At best. But there's one of the teams you're worried about because they never made any changes. You get lit up at home by the Arizona Cardinals, and I mean you got lit up. Kyler Murray had 5 total touchdowns and almost 300 yards passing. It was a big loss. 38-13 was the final, and now you're rolling into Seattle week 2 against the Seahawks team who just came off a big victory off the road. Now, The game to me, it worries me a little bit on the Hawks side because I know Tennessee is going to be angry and pissed off, and they're going to want to come in guns blazing. And in the back of their mind, Tennessee's mind, they know if they come out 0-2, they're in some trouble. Now, I mean, they're in a division, the AFC South, that's not very good. You got Jacksonville, you got Houston, you got Indianapolis, but you can't over. I mean, those are teams you should beat, and you should be 6-0 against your division rivals. But you cannot overlook these games, and you got to come out to a fast start. So, that game on Sunday will be interesting. But I think if Tennessee doesn't come out a little bit more aggressive, establish the running game early, and they fall behind quick, they're going to be in some trouble. So those are my two teams I think are a little bit of trouble. Like I said, I don't want to freak out starting 0-1 because you shouldn't freak out because there's 16 games left. You know what I mean? But recent memory will tell you that if you start off 0-2, 0-3, you're in some trouble. And you got some catching up to do. So it'll be an interesting week 2. We got some matchups coming up week 2 that I wanted to discuss. But those are my two teams I think are in a hot seat. Seahawks and Titans will be on Sunday afternoon. I think the Seahawks looking very nice right now. And I say that because how fluid the offense looked in the first half of their game against the Colts. The Colts is elite defense. They're elite. And they weren't expecting Carson Wentz to play, but even then the defense looked sharp. I thought the most impressive person on the whole field on Sunday for the Seahawks was Chris Carson because he looked healthy, he looked stronger, and he looked faster. And that's something you need. Now, Rashard Penny goes hurt. That solidifies him as a starter. And I think he'll be starting here for it. But some of the other matchups that I wanted to get into before I get into week 2, I just wanted to round up and just wrap up week 1. There's 2 divisions that won all their games. The NFC West and the AFC West won every single game. Seahawks, Rams, 49ers, Cardinals all won their respective games, while in the AFC West, Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs, and Chargers all won their respective games. And I honestly believe the NFC West is probably the toughest division, but the AFC West is not far behind. I mean, you're talking. I mean, I think the Rams looked the best out of all 4 teams, and that's just not me being biased because I love the Rams, but the Rams looked really good. I know they were playing Chicago, but they looked really good. And they have a test coming up this week because they got to play the Colts. We'll see how they look. If they can beat them like the Seahawks beat them, they are for sure locked in and ready to go, and they should be a really solid contender down the stretch. Coming into week 2, there's a couple interesting matchups. I told you about the Rams and the Colts. Monday night, you got the Lions and the Packers. Sunday night is probably going to be the game of the week, and that's the Chiefs and the Ravens. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be a really good game. The last time these 2 teams met, it was a back and forth, high scoring. Lamar Jackson putting on the show. You already know Patrick Mahomes is going to put on a show. That boy is lethal. That should be an excellent game. That's going to be probably the game of the week next week. It's going to be on Sunday Night Football, so everybody is going to be on prime time. Everybody's going to be watching. Some of the other games leading to it, the Cowboys and the Chargers is going to be interesting. That's going to be at SoFi Inglewood. How are the Cowboys going to However, Cowboys had some time to rest here because they haven't played since Thursday. They're going to have a whole 10 games, 10 days off before they're going to be nice and rested. Even though the Chargers are favored by 3 at home, I gotta say, I think the Cowboys should be favored in this game. Now it's gonna the Chargers defense is really good, so they're gonna be pressuring Dak. But I really want to see them establish Ezekiel Elliott in the run game. If they can get that and run maneuver some play action in there, I think it'll be a close game. But I think the Cowboys should edge it out. A couple other games that are eye popping on the schedule. The Raiders and the Steelers. That's a 10 a.m. start on Sunday. Both teams coming off a win. The Steelers are coming off a win against a team that I don't think they had any business of winning. I'll tell you why. Ben Roethlisberger, he really looks his age, and I don't mean any disrespect to him, but that Steeler defense is elite, and it's carrying him through the. But it's gonna come a time where there's gonna be a lot of the responsibility on Ben Roethlisberger to make some plays down the stretch, and I don't know if he can do that anymore. Now I could be wrong, and people are gonna get on me about that, but you saw it in that Bills game. The Steelers had no business winning that game last week against the Bills. That was the Steelers' defense locking that team up. Stephon Diggs had 65 yards receiving. Stephon Diggs is probably one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in the league. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I don't. Tyreek Hill. Is there anybody better than Stephon Diggs? He's probably top 2 or 3. But they couldn't get the run game established. There were some turnovers. Josh Allen, he looked subpar. Maybe there was some stuff that was going on during the offseason. Maybe they were too relaxed and not so much focused. But the Steelers came out focused and playing some really good football. So that being said, the Steelers have another tough matchup this week. And I was one of those people that said that the Steelers would be, I wouldn't say underrated, but they should be in contention, or they shouldn't be disregarded on winning the division, because the Steelers can still play. They're playing the Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders are coming off that win on Monday. It'll be a short week for the Raiders. But I do like Pittsburgh Steelers' chances. They are the favorite. It's their first home game of the season. They're a 6.5-point favorite. I'm gonna go with the under on the 6.5. I think it'll be a lot closer than that. The Raiders had a good game last night, but they're dealing with a different monster here, and they're gonna be on the road. You're gonna see what this team. We're gonna see what this team is actually made of this Sunday, because you're gonna be on the road, hostile environment. Heinz Field is nowhere people like to play. And the Steelers always play tough defense. So that game is going to be interesting to me. The Bills and the Dolphins, that should be another interesting game, because both have elite defenses. The Bills are probably going to be pissed off coming off that loss. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's check up the score. I'm going to check on the scores from the MLB. There's still some games going on. Right now, Mariners and Red Sox still tied at 2 apiece. Bottom of the 7th, Mariners have a runner on with 2 outs. San Francisco still going. They're up 6-1 over on San Diego. And in the bottom of the seventh, the Dodgers are up 8-4 over the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we'll keep an eye on those scores as the show continues. Now, with week 2 coming, and we got a Thursday night tilt. The next game will be this Thursday. You got the Washington football team versus the New York Giants. Kind of a snoozer of a game, but I'm still going to watch because it's NFL football. I think anybody's going to watch NFL football. We've had to have football in a minute. So anytime we have a game on, I'm all in. But I wanted to point out some little waiver wires. It's the first week of waiver wires for your fantasy team. Now, little quick story. Last year, I won both of my leagues for the first time ever. I've been playing fantasy football for at least, 10 years? Maybe longer. But this is the first week. Everybody knows waiver wires are important. If you have any key injuries or anything like that. And we had, anytime you have, if you had any of the Boston Red Sox, or not Boston Red Sox, the Baltimore Ravens running backs, excuse me, when you lose 3 of your starting running backs, that's a problem. And for fantasy owners, that's a huge problem. So there was a couple of players that I think I want to bring up that might be suitable for your team for replacements or anything like that. I know for me personally, my teams right now, I have Aaron Rodgers in one of my leagues, and let me tell you, I was super angry on Sunday. He put up a big donut on my scoreboard. It cost me a game. That being said, I had Patrick Mahomes in another league, and I still lost. And the reason being is because Raheem Mostert went out. Now, if you've been following the 49ers, they lost a lot of players over the weekend in that game against Detroit. Most particularly Raheem Mostert, which we found out he has a sprained MCL, and he's going to be out 8 weeks. So before the show, I was like, wait a second, we got to touch on some fantasy stuff, right? We got to get some players that people can pick up. So I was going through this list of players from the previous week that I thought would help with your depth chart. And we're going to go through some of that right now. So obviously, Raheem Mostert was a big pickup for a lot of teams. He was rostered in probably 75-80% of leagues. So who's going to be a replacement? So Elijah Mitchell came in. Raheem Mostert went out probably the second or third play of the game. He had 2 carries for 20 yards, and then he was done. His day was done after that. Elijah Mitchell came in. He ran for over 100 yards off of, I believe, 15 carries. So Elijah Mitchell would be my number one pick out of fantasy. And if you needed a starting running back, Elijah Mitchell would be my number one waiver wire pick for this week. Their number 2, and a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy for this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. My number 2 pick that I think will be a good pickup for this week is Sterling Shepard. And he had an awesome game for the New York Giants, even though off the loss. He was targeted, I believe, 11 times. He had 8 catches for 76 yards. Very, very solid numbers. In a wide receiver a field of wide receiver because they got Kevin Galladay. They got a few other receivers that they brought in the offseason. And I believe he will be a good. I think he's going to be an integral part of the Giants defense because they can't seem to get anything established at the moment right now. So Sterling Shepard would be my second pickup. Third, and this might not be a, I wouldn't say popular, but it wouldn't be, it would be like a stash away type of deal. And that's Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields came in during the Rams game on a couple of gadget plays, and he did quite well. He scored a touchdown on one of those plays. So it seems like he has the momentum going to, because Andy Dalton didn't look great. And I think it's going to be his time pretty soon. So Justin Fields it's kind of like a stash. You stash him away. Maybe your quarterback's not, maybe you got a second or third tier quarterback on your starting roster. Justin Fields might be good to pick up right now. Justin Fields is already rostered in almost 50% of leagues, according to ESPN, which is crazy to me because a lot of people already have him stashed away because they feel like he's going to be the starter here in the next few weeks. And I feel the same way about him. So Justin Fields will be one of my picks. Another player that is not really rostered in a lot of lineups, but had a really good game over the weekend would be Nelson Aguilar of the New England Patriots. He's probably the most seasoned veteran wide receiver on the squad right now. And Mac Jones was targeting him a lot during the game against the Dolphins, even though they came short. So Nelson Aguilar, he's already rostered in 25% of leagues, according to ESPN. But he's reliable. He had a great season last year with the Raiders, and it seems like they have a rapport of him and Mac Jones. So I would roster him as well. There's a couple other players that I want to get into. Mark Ingram II. Now they have a running back by committee in Houston, but with David Johnson and Philip Lindsay on the squad. But Mark Ingram had a great game. I don't know if you saw the game with the Houston Texans with the win over Jacksonville. He had an amazing game. Had a really solid game. And he should be. I think he's going to get a boatload of carries at the moment because they don't really trust. I mean, Philip Lindsay and David Johnson are going to get their carries. That's just it. They're going to get some carries, but it seems like when Mark Ingram, he's one of the most reliable running backs out of the three. He's the most reliable. He's probably the biggest out of the three, but he's also one of the fastest. And Mark Ingram's a proven running back, so I would roster him. He's only rostered in about 10% of leagues right now. So if you're still looking for that, I mean, he's probably a flex at best at the moment. It's still an early sample size, but they were handing him the rock a lot week one. Zach Pascal, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, he was targeted quite a bit. He kind of took the spot of T.Y. Hilton because T.Y. Hilton's on the PUP list at the moment. He's going to be out the next 4 or 5 games. So Pascal had a decent game. I think he will see a number of shared targets. Him and Michael Pittman Jr. If you don't have Michael Pittman Jr., then with Carson Wentz in the backfield, I think he's worth a stash. He might be a flex play, and depending on deeper leagues, maybe a PPR league, he might be worth the stash. So my Zach Pascal, but the biggest one, if you're looking for a quarterback right now, like you're desperate for a quarterback, and you're minus Justin Fields because Justin Fields is not starting quarterback right now. So you're looking for a starter. Tyrod Taylor is a big one. Tyrod Taylor almost had 30 fantasy points over the weekend in that win against Jacksonville. Now, they're playing Jacksonville. I get it. Jacksonville is not very good. They're a young squad, but you pull up those type of numbers, you're worth me mentioning you on a fantasy pickup. That's if you're desperate for a quarterback. I know Baker Mayfield didn't have the best game. I know Ryan Fitzpatrick just went out. He's on the IR. Some people have Ryan Fitzpatrick starting. But if you need a quarterback right now, you gotta give Tyrod Taylor a look, at least. He's worth the stats. 30 fantasy points. It's pretty good. And I just want to check and see who the Houston Texans have next week because if it's a favorable matchup, we gotta think big on that. And it looks like the Texans have the Cleveland Browns. Now the Cleveland Browns have an elite defense, but was a little bit exposed over the weekend with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I think that being said, Brandon Cooks had an excellent game as well. They're letting him cut loose and run the offense the way he wants to run the offense. So if you're looking for, like I said, if you're looking for a quarterback, Tyrod Taylor would be your man. So those players, Elijah Mitchell will probably be your number one. He's rostered in less than 5% of leagues, but I'm sure that's going to change overnight. I told you about Sterling Shepard, Zach Pascal, Mark Ingram II, and Tyrod Taylor. And if you want, you can stash Justin Fields because I have a feeling we can book it. You can book it on this show right now. I think he'll be in there by week 3 or 4 because they're in the hot seat in Chicago, so they need a change. So I can see him getting there. So if you want to stash him up and have him ready, all is well. I would do that. So that being said, I'm gonna do 3 picks for this week that I think, Vegas style. See what's going on with the Vegas. I think with the week 2 matchups are a little bit more intriguing than the week 1. There's a lot of hype around week 1 because it's the first games of the season, but there were some close calls, there were some blowouts, and then there were some really great games like last night. A couple of things that I wanted to mention though on the second year quarterbacks that we saw yesterday and some of the Sunday over the weekend, some of the second year quarterbacks that I thought were impressive. Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles had an amazing game. I thought he's earned some respect in Philly. The fact that they're not, it doesn't seem like they have given him the respect or make him feel like he's going to be the solid number one guy. The fact that they had a quarterback dispute with Joe Flacco is a little ridiculous. But that being said, Jalen Hurts had an amazing game. I thought Mac Jones showed some poise in his game, even though they came up short against the Dolphins. And he's not a year 2 quarterback; he's a year 1. But he looked great. Tua looked amazing. He played in that same game. He was efficient. He didn't turn the ball over, and he got the Dolphins a victory. And then Kyler Murray. I've been saying this I said this last year, and I am going to hold true to that. Arizona is a problem. They got Chandler Jones. I don't think people understand. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks week 1. 5. They were doubling J.J. Watt all game long, leaving space for Chandler Jones to get open. And what does he do? 5 sacks. Tannehill was under pressure all game long. Kyler Murray tossing it up to DeAndre Hopkins. And then a lot of people forget about Christian Kirk. And they forgot about they signed A.J. Green. A.J. Green can still play. I know he's a little bit older, but he can still play. So basically what I'm telling you is Arizona's got a lot of weapons. Chase Edmonds is legit. They have a lot of weapons in Arizona. They are a problem for any team to deal with. But I thought Jalen Hurts was very impressive. And I mean, my uncle is a diehard Cardinals fan. He lives in Arizona right now. And people ask, how's your uncle a Cardinals fan? Well, when we were living in St. Louis years ago, when I was a kid, the Arizona Cardinals were from St. Louis. It were the St. Louis Cardinals. So they had the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team and the St. Louis Cardinals basketball team. The St. Louis Cardinals football team, football and baseball. Sorry, I get them mixed up. So the St. Louis Cardinals football team was bought out and moved to Arizona. And that's where they've been ever since. They left St. Louis in 1989, I believe. And then soon after that, the Los Angeles Rams get shipped off and they moved to St. Louis. And that was in 1996. And then the rest is history. We already know the Rams won a Super Bowl. They went to a couple more. They went to one more. They didn't get back after that. Next thing you know, they moved back to LA. Arizona Cardinals, they've been to a couple of Super Bowls. They haven't been able to win it yet. So, but Arizona is a problem, and my uncle is a diehard fan, and he's been telling me this is the year Kyler Murray is going to lead us to the Super Bowl. Now, I think he's crazy. I ain't going that far, but I don't know what he's smoking or whatever. But Arizona is not going to the Super Bowl, but I do agree they are a serious problem. They probably were the most impressive team for me out of the teams that played this week. They had the most impressive win to me. I would say Arizona, Seattle, and Tampa were the 3 most impressive teams this week. 3 most disappointing teams. I already mentioned the Green Bay Packers. I already mentioned the Tennessee Titans. Those were my 2. I would say the other team that was not as impressive, it would probably be a toss-up between, I would probably go Baltimore, even though they put up a lot of points. I wasn't too impressed with Cleveland either. Cleveland had a tougher matchup because anytime you're playing KC, that's a tough matchup. I mean, you gotta deal with 2 elite receivers with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, but I thought Cleveland, they haven't won an opening game in over 17 years, and I thought this was going to be their time, but you're missing Odell Beckham. You got to have Odell Beckham back in that lineup. He's supposed to be back next week, so we'll see how that goes. But lots of action week 2 coming up. I already talked about some of the games that are coming up this week. Thursday we got a game. Next Monday night, or this Monday night, is going to be good. Now, I wanted to get into some college football real quick. And let me say this. The Washington Huskies, I don't even know what to say right now with them right now. I know this is a biased subject right now, and I don't want to be that, but I've been watching this team closely. this team is awful, presently constructed. I mean, the game against the game against Michigan, and there were some bright spots there, but you just came off a loss to Montana. I don't even know I don't know how to follow that. Like when the schedule came out, that game against Michigan that was circled on my calendar, and I was excited for it, but didn't want to overlook Montana. And what happens? You don't get any kind of running game going. Quarterback looks like he's scared to throw a pass down field, and you're getting pressured all game long. All game long. I don't even know what to say. I was dumbfounded by that game. But in any event, the Huskies, they have some serious problems going on right now, and they need to get it fixed fast because we can't go another week like this. Now, give credit to the Pac-12 for some of those wins that they got this week. Oregon with the big win over Ohio State. That was huge. And that bolstered them up to the top 5. And I'm going to run through the top 5 real quick. Alabama is still ranked number 1. They didn't move a spot. Georgia is still ranked number 2. They didn't move a spot. Oklahoma is 3. They moved up 1 spot to 3. Oregon at 4 moved 8 spots to number 4. Moving up 5 spots is Iowa at 5. Clemson stays solid at 6. Texas A&M down 2 spots to 7. Cincinnati's down a spot to 8. Ohio State with the loss to Oregon moves down 6 spots to number 9. That's probably the biggest drop out of anybody. And Oregon made the biggest jump out of anybody. Penn State up 1 spot to number 10. Florida up 2 spots to 11. Notre Dame down 4 spots to 12. UCLA, which is super underrated. I'm telling you right now, UCLA is a contender. They are up 3 spots to number 13. Iowa State with the loss down 5 spots to number 14. Virginia Tech up 4 spots to number 15. Coastal Carolina. You think they were playing basketball as a basketball team, but it's actually a football school. They're up 1 spot to 16. Ole Miss up 3 spots to 17. Wisconsin stays pat at 18. Arizona State up 4 spots to 19. Arkansas, still, they weren't ranked. Now they're back. They're on the top 20. They're ranked at number 20. North Carolina's up 3 spots to 21. Auburn up 3 to 22. BYU makes the top 25. They weren't ranked last week. University of Miami down 2 spots to number 24. And rounding up the top 25 is Michigan, who was not ranked last week, but the big win over the Huskies put them there. Honorable mentions: Michigan State, USC, LSU, Texas Tech. Some of these schools, Utah, they were on the top 25 a couple weeks ago. USC, Texas, and Utah were all in the top 25. They have fallen off at the moment. And those are the rankings going into week 3 of the college football season. Let's look in here to see when the next games are at. Looks like there's no games until Saturday. Saturday is a full slate of games. But yes, that game with the Huskies really. Let me put it like this. I'm a Pac-12 guy, and I want the Pac-12 to succeed because I think they've been getting the short end of the stick for years. But it's good to see some teams like, Oregon and UCLA. Those are your top 2 from the Pac-12 at the moment. Give credit to Arizona State. Arizona State is solid, but we need some more Pac-12 teams up in there. And hopefully after this week, we'll get some. ASU has a big game against BYU. They're both ranked. That's going to be on ESPN this Saturday nights. Some other games that I'm looking at: Penn State and Auburn, two ranked teams. UCLA and Fresno. That's going to be a huge Pac-12 tilt, and that's coming up this week. So a lot of stuff coming on. Obviously, we got some NFL things going on. Baseball playoffs are heating up. Next week, we're going to recap some week 3 stuff. We'll see how the Packers look. I'll be closely watching that Packers game on Monday night, and we'll see how that go. Cross your fingers, and let's hope for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron, if you hear me, if you're watching this podcast right now, I need you to put up 350 with 4 touchdowns on Monday. You're playing Detroit. You're a Lambo. Get it together. And, of course, I might be at the Seahawks game on Sunday, so I might be seeing them live and in person. So, maybe. I'm working on getting tickets right now. But next week, we're going to get into some recap of week 2 of the NFL, week 3 of college football. We'll get into some fantasy stuff, your waiver wire picks. And then we're going to be watching closely as the end of the baseball season is coming to an end. It's winding down. We got a couple weeks left, and we're just going to be winding down. So, thanks you guys for joining us. Look forward to see you. Episode 2 coming to an end. And love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. Peace.